My professional learning goals coincide with my personalized professional learning, and that is part of my Future Ready library program that I attend different conferences. To be part of the professional development makes the library programming a vital part of the curriculum in our school. I also point out that I want to incorporate inquiry and design thinking into the curriculum across the board. I used to be a resource for resources. I used to be a resource for research and so on. But now I see the vast amount of future ready skills and ISTE standards center on design inquiry, which is something that I have been pursuing since my ISTE training and since last spring. This affords the students to have more engaged learning. And if you look down here in the right hand corner, that is part of the shared vision with the school district of Sparta, where we want students to be engaged. As I already stated, my professional learning goals are aligned with the Future Ready Librarian learning goals. As you go down the screen, you see that I'm also incorporating maker spaces. That is part of engaging relevant instruction, inquiry, and maker spaces into the curriculum. The research skills are very important. The critical thinking online and being able to discern reliability of sources is very important. But design thinking, inquiry, project-based learning have all opened a lot of doors with maker spaces that I've already experienced this year. In order to achieve this part of my personalized professional learning plan, I named who my collaborators are, which includes the tech department administrators, classroom teachers, as well as literacy coaches throughout the district. Part of my learning goal is to meet with teachers 10 minutes per week at grade levels for curriculum tie-ins and to collaborate. I also do some training sessions where I'm learning right along with the teachers, sometimes with some new digital tools during staff trainings, which occur once per month. And then I was also afforded the opportunity to train new staff in the new digital citizenship as well as social media and different topics like intellectual property. My professional learning goals align with the shared vision of my school district. And with that said, I work with the after school program in which I have joined the Boys and Girls Club and made community connections. I've also brought inquiry within the curriculum, and then makerspaces have really taken off with the Winnovators, as well as advocating for the Hispanic population who were displaced in our community, and now they have a place to gather. And it's my form of community outreach, and I have tied in technology to make things possible in order to advocate for those populations, but also to share out and get the word out. And the electronic tools I have used have allowed me to connect with higher educational institutions, different support systems in neighboring counties and neighboring school districts. Part of my learning goals is to create a robust infrastructure. And with that said, as I had advocated and given voice to underrepresented, I pulled out Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction statistics. Many emails went back and forth with the head of technology in which I was advocating for one-on-one devices to be going home. I worked with a team of teachers in convincing our principal that the devices do need to go home. And while doing so, I continued to teach both my students, which are middle school students, as well as my adult teaching students when it comes to professional development, how to use Google applications with offline access and how to make things so that students do have offline access. But in cases where that's not possible, I was able to land a grant to attain 12 Khajiits. It's not a lot compared to the 20 I had last year. However, it's a it's a starting point, and now the curriculum director has seen the stats of checkouts and the usage of the Khajiits, and she's looking for us to invest in them next year for a district-wide again. And I showed that our students need these Khajiits because they do not have home access. The one-on-one devices, they are talking about not sending them home this year, but that has not been the case. I have made the case for those students as well as the teachers, and I've been on a team to do this. In the spring of 2019, I was able to attain some funding for makerspaces, and then my curriculum director also pumped in money for the makerspaces. With that said, I was on the docket to present about makerspaces in the fall with comms after I had shared with some of the members that I'm taking this step forward and I want to bring something new to the library, but more importantly to the students of Sparta Middle School. And therefore, I did a training session and I shared with them my views about the makerspace not being in a fixed space, but having it being flexible. And that actually seemed to go very well because a lot of the librarians have that shared vision of equity and access for all. I made sure that they were flexible and fluid so that they could go all throughout the building, even in the self-contained classrooms. Therefore, that's equity within the school district to have access to those maker spaces, that they don't have to come down to a specific set inflexible room in a library like I see happening so many times where it's just not accessible. Another part of my learning goal is community partnership. And with community partnerships, I was able to co-write a grant with the library director of the Sparta Free Public Library. And with that, we had a community focus on the Hispanic Project, building a gathering place for them twice per month. And then I collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club and the WIN program, in which we do clubs, utilize makerspaces and creative things that were established with the maker grants and the curriculum monies. It is catching on within the school now, and there is actually computational thinking put in. I had a STEM teacher who did not want her students to all do board games in one group because she felt that one student was more advanced, and he wanted to work with the group members. So I thought of a creative solution in which he could code in Scratch using Raspberry Pi and a monitor and mimic what they were doing with the board game, only writing the code for a digital game with the same types of results. As I pointed out here, data and privacy issues are addressed in staff trainings and professional development. However, data and privacy issues affect the students on a day in, day out basis, whether it's an Edmodo password or a password for their email or getting onto Google Drive. These issues are addressed on a daily basis, and they are also infused in curriculum during academy time as well as during library lessons. It is important to point out that part of my professional learning plan is to be able to collaborate with leadership, whether that is administration, other library personnel within my district, or public librarians. The big thing is for me to create connections and to collaborate, such as when I collaborate with the grant writer. And then that allows me to advocate for populations within my school, which also therefore in turn allows me to fund and have great programming for these underserved populations. I try to find community tie-ins. I try to have positive involvement, work on digital resources and digital collaborations at all times. People important with this are not only the library directors in the public library, but also the principal, committee chairs, even at higher education institutions, the director of curriculum instruction, as well as student organizations who have brought great energy to some of my campaigns and some of my advocacy. It is important for me again to point out that recent district-wide in-services echoed some of my professional learning goals. That is to engage the stakeholders, as you can see down here in the district and the community, through a variety of engaging means, which is my programming with the Latinx community and the Hispanic community, and providing them a safe haven to come together and build their community. With that, the authors had brought different slideshows that they shared about the beginnings of their life and where they grew up and how they overcame some of their obstacles. It was very inspiring, and I couldn't have done it without advocating for them, without the tools to advocate for them, without contacting those authors via email or Twitter or their Facebook account. And it just, since I've opened up Twitter, by the way, it's really opened a huge door for opportunity for my students. But back on my professional learning goals, I am incorporating makerspaces, and already I'm seeing how those students who have been deemed as challenging or bored maybe are actually finding something fun in school, and they're actually experimenting and trying to apply what they're doing to apply it to their curriculum and some of the needs within the curriculum. I had some students that made a movie with green screen to fulfill an ELA rubric. They took everything from the rubric, brought it up a little bit, and took it to the teacher, and it was approved for them to create that book trailer. And this is something that really I have not done prior to this, and the maker spaces have really opened up the creativity so much within the building. Also, inquiry. Last spring I started delving into it, and I really did a lot of research to justify it with both my principal and the charter school principal. And with that research, I found a lot of really cool things about building trust, building empathy, online digital citizenship that were applied as well as modeled within lessons that I had developed. It became a unit plan with the STEM students, and now the 6th grade team is wanting to do a similar inquiry unit. And this is how my practices have changed. More creativity, more dynamics with the technology, far, far more opportunities for the students. In order to justify the use of space and time within the library, my space and my time is beyond the walls of the Library Media Center. It should be touching all the curriculum. It should be infusing some of the inquiry that I've been learning about. It should involve the maker movement and being able to have those creative ways of engaging the students and having them become knowledge creators, not just knowledge consumers. And I said a big part of the maker spaces is that equity and access. I do not want it in a static room. I want them out and about, whether it's a Sphero. I don't want them to stay in the LMC and you have to come to use them. I want them out there. Flexibility and fluidity are the key. Yes, I do feel that students can check some of this stuff out. I've had students already take Raspberry Pis home, and over the weekend they work on it, and they're excited to come back to school and show me some of the games that they created. And I guess you could say with curriculum instruction and assessment, I have really had a changed mindset. In fact, I would consider it more of a growth mindset in the sense that I now see the potential of inquiry. I see the potential of the maker spaces. I see the creativity, and I'm trying to make that infectious for all the teachers to see and to realize that our digital presence is a global world full of experts and full of resources. And because of that, collaborators for me as well as for other teachers are their peer teachers, the director of instruction, principals, a global network of specialists, and community members that are worldwide. Whenever I co-teach, I'm always using the research as well as all of the standards required within our district. And finally, recent in-service had pulled out our collective commitments, and Effectively and efficiently using of resources includes those digital resources that I have both online and offline access, community as well as engagement, equity and excellence for all, a safe and supportive learning environment, and high expectations for student achievement. And that includes those who need alternative assessments to showcase what they have learned. As I've pointed out here, I view technology not as a destination, but rather it as being a journey. It is my hope that all the resources for students on all ability levels are accessible to them at all times. I aligned my professional learning plan to my licensure standards. For my sixth grade students, I have used the TRAILS assessment, which has been put out by Kent State University, and it is a tool for real-time assessment of information literacy skills. It helps to formulate some of the lesson plans and some of the units that I work with the English teachers as well as the social studies and science teachers. I also utilize different infographics throughout the building that will teach about intellectual freedom, fair use, free speech, copyright, Creative Commons, new digital citizenships, the different things that the students can look at, and also see the Creative Commons attributions for those posters at the bottom. It really makes for lively discussions as well as appealing to those visual students throughout the building, and to see that, oh wow, it's in a poster, something that we've been talking about and learning about and doing.